This is Satyaprakash. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'll describe what is Git branch and how to use it in GitHub. So this is the part 15 of my GitHub session. So before going through this video, I suggest you please go through my part 14 of GitHub session. So I'll tell you about in my next slide what the points I'll describe today. So first point is what is Git branch, and second one is Git branch with an example. Then DevOps importance in Agile methodology and the solution to above issue using branching strategy and uses of branches for environment in real-time world. So we'll talk about that is what is Git branch. So Git branch is nothing but the copy of source code. The source code is when the application is written using backend code like Java, .NET, etc. And for user interface, the code is written using HTML, CSS, jQuery, Angular, and Bootstrap. Also database related scripts using SQL Server, Oracle, DBScript, MySQL, etc. So Git branch is the container of all these things, so that the web developer can easily find the source code, by whom it was written and using what language, and it can be tracked easily. So I have added one diagram here. So here you can see here the left side symbol identifies the Git branch, and in Git branch there is one default branch which is auto created during creation of new repository, and another option for creating new branch as shown in the diagram here. So Git branch here, default branch, and create new branch. So I'll show you that what Git branch with an example here. So before that, I'll show you one that is two types of Git branch we can do, that is default Git branch, and another one is we can use the new Git branch. So default Git branch is by default you can see sometime main branch or master. This is the default branches when you create your GitHub repository, and you can create your own new branch here, like any name like ABCD, your name, anything, and you can use in your GitHub repository maintenance. Okay, so I'll show you how GitHub default branch it is showing. So here it is the GitHub URL here, and GitHub's username, it is the repository, and you can see here is the main is the default branch in GitHub. And how to use the new branch here, you can see that there is text box, there is showing that find or create new branch. So use something, type here, and if you click here create branch, so DHS from main, so DHS is your branch name, and from main branch, that is default branch. So I'll create another video what is the different default branches and how to use this in our real-time scenario. So we already have known how to use the default branch and how to create the new branch using GitHub. Okay, now let's go to my slide here. So the next point is Git branch with an example. So I have created one diagram for it. It is very for easy understanding, and it is very useful for better understanding of what is the Git branch and how to use it in GitHub. Okay, so as for the above image, so this is the image what I described in earlier slide, that is that I already have a default branch called main, what I have shown here, and this is the one main branch, and with committed files. This main branch is the default branch with some committed files. You can see myfile.cs, myfile2.cs, and a readme.amd file. So but I want a setup copy of those files. So to understand better, I'll describe with an Git branch diagram here. So I'll show you one diagram I have added here, and here what I did is, here I have one GitHub repo. In this repo I have three branches called master, testing, and production. Okay, and here two developers are there, one is dev1, another one is dev2, are connected to default branch called the master branch or main branch. So whatever files will commit and push, these changes will be pushed to the master or main default branch in the GitHub. Okay, so let's take an example, as these developers are working in a common project called an online food delivery site. So they finish the user registration page and push the coding to part to master page, that is the default branch of our GitHub repository. Okay, so inside that GitHub repo, what is showing in our diagram here, so once they commit their code to the master branch or main branch, we are going to take this code and deploy that code to one of the application server called dev application. This is the dev application server here. Okay, so once deployed, then these developers connect to the dev application server and test their code. This is called the sanity test, to see whether the code works fine or not. Okay, so this is the best example how multiple developers work on one GitHub repository and one default branch, that is the master branch or main branch. After then how they share the code and deploy that code to one of the server. There's many server, dev application, testing and production server. So initially they are deployed to the dev application server here, and once deployed, these developers can connect to the dev application server and test their code, whatever changes have been made in that code, and as well as the server, and whether the code works or fine or not. Okay, now whatever set of code is deployed in dev application server, the same set of code will deploy to the testing server here, testing application server. Because the developers are doing a round of testing called sanity testing by sanity integration using, you can see it using Redis Insight. So as per earlier discussion, once the same code is deployed in the testing application server, you can call it as quality assurance or QA server. Then testers will test this application thoroughly with positive and negative cases. Okay, so dev application server is nothing but the developers, and test application server is nothing but the testers or QA team, that is quality assurance. So once these two testing are done from the developer as well as testing, then finally this code will be ready to push to the final server, that is production application server or live server. Okay, now our next point is DevOps importance in Agile methodology. So here what Agile says is, instead of developing an entire application and releasing it after 6 months and 1 year, we have to release application feature by feature. So as per earlier discussion on food delivery site, first we release the user registration page, then release the sign in page. After then we add some module to that food delivery site, and next we add the options called add to cart and payment options. So using the same process, they are going to release feature by feature. So as per earlier discussion, our first release of user registration page is pushed to the master branch, that is the this default branch is, and this codes deployed to the dev application server and then deployed to the testing application server or QA server, nothing but the quality assurance. And finally we move the code to the production application server, that is the live server, where our end user will be using our application. So as per Agile methodology, once one functionality is completed and it's deployed to the testing application server and testers are started testing this implementation of code, it takes maximum 2 to 3 days. So for these 3 days the developers will not sit idle, so they have to start working on the next functionality called sign in page. So after then they move the code to master branch that is the default branch or main branch. So as per DevOps automation flow, the developers will take the code from master branch or main branch and they will deploy in testing application server here. So what happens is tester will not get the stable code because the sign-in functionality is available in testing application server. So the user registration page functionality is not working here. What is testing here, that is the the user registration page functionality is not working here, that is the testing application server. So what the developers deployed the new sign-in functionality because of that tester will face the issue. So what is the overall describe here, that the user registration page whatever the deployed in our testing application server is not working, that is testing application server. So what developers deployed the new sign-in functionality, because of that tester will face the issue. Okay, so what is happening that, okay, so here there is three branches: master, testing and production, and dev application server and testing application server. So here what happened, sequentially the developers will deploy to the master branch and get the code and share with each other, and it will go to the dev application server, and after then it will go to the testing application server. So dev application server, what happens is it will first deploy to the registration page, user registration page, after then sign in page. Okay, so what happened, the developers will deploy that functionality of user registration page from dev application server to testing application server, and here the sign in functionality only deployed in the dev application server, not testing application server, so that when testing will happen, the testers will face the issue of new sign-in functionality, because the dev application server whatever sign-in functionality is not available in our testing application server. So that developer deployed the new sign-in functionality, because of that only testers will face the issue, because all this related functionality not deployed to the testing application server at a time. Okay, what is the solution to above issue using branching strategy? So I'll go to my slide here. So the next is the solution to the issue whatever we described earlier, how testing people will face the issue after deployed the new sign-in functionality by the developers. That can be solved using the branching strategy. So let's explain this scenario using branching strategy. Okay, so here I'll explain a separate copy of code. Let's explain this scenario using branching strategy. First, these developers complete a user registration page functionality, then these developers will push the code to master branch or main branch here and deploy to the dev application server. So once the sanity testing is done by developer thoroughly, next, instead of deploying the code to testing application server, these developers will move the code of code from master branch to testing branch. Okay, so here the code will be deployed from testing branch to test application server, and the tester will start testing the code for user registration functionality. So the developers will not start idle, and they start implementing functionality of sign in page and push the code to master branch. So next, this developer started sanity testing in dev application server. After then, developers will push the code to testing branch, and here in testing branch both user registration page and sign in page functionality will be available here, and both functionality codes are deployed both from testing branch to testing application server. So here what happened, that user registration, the developer will not sit idle at that moment, and they start functionality of sign in page and push the code to master branch. And here developer started sanity testing here and testing in dev application server. After then developers will push the code to testing branch, and here in testing branch both registration and sign in functionality will be available here, and both the functionality code are deployed from testing branch to testing application server. Finally the testers can test the functionality without any issue because there is no dependency or relationship between these copies of code in master branch and testing branches. Next, these developers will start working on next functionality called payment option or add to cart option, and after these changes the developers will push this code to master branch, and after sanity testing is done these changes will move to the testing branch and then deploy to the testing application server. So if the testers will find any defects, then these defects will be assigned or informed to the developers to fix that issue. After that defects is fixed, the developers will push the code to master branch and then move the same copy to the testing branch. So now once we have tested our functionality in testing application server, if everything is working fine, then we will move copy from testing branch to production branch as shown in the diagram here. Now we deploy code from production branch to production application server. Like this we need different copies of branches. This one is the best example of for understanding the branching strategy in a real-time scenario. So here we can create n number of branches, and also we can use any branch for any environment, that is development, testing or production, nothing but the live server. There is no restrictions at all. Okay, so what happened I'll describe in very simple sentences. That here one GitHub repo is there is 3 branches, master, testing and production branches, and this master branch is connected with 2 developers, dev1 and dev2, and there is 3 different servers for development, dev application server, for testing application server, and for production application server. So what happened in my previously how testing people will face that issue, because developers whatever push the changes of code to the branch, that is master branch, and master branch will be connected to the dev application server and testing server and production server. So because of that only whatever dev people will deploy to the dev application server, that is not available in testing application server and production application server. So that what happened, dev people will use the dev application server, testing people will use the testing application server, and our customer will use our production application server, nothing but the live server. So whatever changes made in our dev application server, the developers can test it using sanity test, but the testing people will face that issue because some features will not be available whatever in dev application server, that features are not available in testing application server and also the production application server. So to fix that issue, we implement one strategy called branching strategy. For different application server we have assigned different branches. For default branch it associated with the dev application server, for testing it is testing application server, and production for production application server. So whatever developers have done the changes in master branch, that will reflect in dev application server, and after testing is done, sanity testing, it will move the code from master branch to or default branch to testing branch. So in testing branch, from testing branch to deploy the code to testing application server. So the testing people will test the code thoroughly and all the functionality in the code and in the application. And if this sanity testing and QA testing was done with all positive and negative scenarios, and it will be approved by the testing people, then that code moved from testing branch to production branch. And this production branch, whatever code available, this is the most positive code and there is no issues at all, and this code will be deployed to our production application server. So this live server will be used by our end user. So this is the final deployment of code. So in this way Git branches strategy will work. Okay, now I'll go to my presentation here. So the next point is uses of branches for environment in real-time world. So in real-time scenario there are various environments as shown as below: development, testing or QA, pre-prod, and production. So development, it can be used for development. Developers will use the server. Testing or QA, it can be used for testing or for QA purpose. Here QA can be split into QA1, QA2 up to QA6 server. So as per requirements. So testing or QA people will use this server. Pre-prod is before go for production or live server, this environment will be added. Mostly QA people or senior most people of this specific project will use. One production server is this can be used for end user or client purpose. Client can use this server. This is the final server and it reaches to the end user or client. And next I'll describe here, I'll show you the branch is used for the environment as shown as below. So development branch is for development environment, testing branch is for testing environment, and pre-prod branch is for pre-prod environment, and master branch for production environment, as I have described here. So instead of master branch, we can see here as default, and another branch we can add here for production. So you can add here as default, and for dev you can add here dev branch, for testing test branch, and here production for production branch. So we can do it also. There is no restriction for creating branches in our GitHub repository. So here I have mentioned one note that there is no mandatory rule that in each environment we create a number of branches. So that is based on decision of our organization. So it can be less than that or more than that. So what I have described, there is no restrictions of creating branches in our GitHub repository. Okay, so as of till now we understood how what is the Git branch and how to use the Git branch using the one Git branch diagram, and how many environment we are implementing, or how Git branches are connected to our different servers, and how we implement our Git branch in our real-time scenario. So this is my YouTube channel. Subscribe and share it to get the up-to-date knowledge on technology. So what we have learned today in this video, that is what is Git branch with an example, and DevOps importance in Agile methodology, and what is the solution using branching strategy. The issue was there, using one branch we deploy to the different servers, so that the testers will face that issue. So that to fix that issue, we have the solution, that branching strategy, and we will create different branch for different servers, so that each branch will associate with the respected servers. For example, for production is production branch for production server, testing branch for testing server, and dev branch for dev server. So uses of branches for environment in real-time world. So that's it for guys today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.